So the fourth factor that can contribute to multiple births is being between the age of 32 and 36. There are a couple different reasons that people assume this happens. One of the major reasons is that between the age of 32 and 36, you see some increase in your hormones. So that would be related to reason number 2. But scientifically, there hasn't really been a whole lot of proof. So it is just a fact that between the age of 32 and 36, you are more likely to have a multiple birth if you are pregnant during that time. Looking at the likelihood of multiple pregnancies or multiple births in the United States, twins are by far the most common, but they are more common for African Americans than they are for Caucasians. So African Americans see a 1 in 73 likelihood, and Caucasians see a 1 in 93 likelihood. Triplets are about 1 in 10,000. Triplets meaning 3. And then quadruplets. Quadruplets are 4, quad meaning 4. And that is a 1 in 620,000 likelihood that you will have quadruplets. All right, and then looking at some of our characteristics and some of our vocabulary, we've already talked about that sex-linked, or it's also known as X-linked defect. But to recover this is when an X gene from the mother is faulty. So if a mother is passing on an X gene that is faulty, a lot of times that mother won't have that fault herself, but there's a 50-50 chance that the child will inherit that disorder. So this is like colorblindness. Colorblindness is far more common in males than it is in females, but females carry that trait for it. So they a lot of times won't be colorblind themselves, but when they pass that X-linked defect to their offspring have that. A syndrome is when a group of signs and symptoms occur together and they're characterized by a particular problem. So if we think of Down syndrome, there are a lot of symptoms and signs that people with Down syndrome all display. So whether it is cognitive, whether it is physical, there are a lot of things that we can see that show different characteristics of that syndrome. We also have something known as congenital malformations. Congenital malformations are conditions that are present at birth. And you'll be doing some research on congenital malformations coming up here, as well as multifactorial defects. Multifactorial defects are when an interaction of our genes with other genes or with environmental factors causes a defect. And then a chromosomal error is the fertilized egg cell that contains chromosomes in an abnormal number, structure, or arrangement. So we have a multitude of chromosomal error disorders or syndromes or whatever you want to call them. But this is just when we look at our fertilized cell, there is a problem with the chromosomes that are within that cell, causing a defect, a malformation, a syndrome, whatever. And we'll look at some of those different chromosomal errors, multifactorial defects, congenital malformations, and syndromes coming up in the next couple weeks. The next thing that we are going to be taking a look at today is you will be dividing up and looking at families that have multiple births. So this is just going to be a little bit of mini research just to learn some more information yourself, but then also to share some of that information with our classmates on what some multiple births are. So the first one is the Macaulay septuplets. The second family are the Dilly sextuplets. The third one are the Fisher quintuplets, the Sulman octuplets, the Matthias quadruplets, and then the Gosselin sextuplets. So there are some guiding questions that you should be researching when you are looking at this. But in addition to that, you are going to be doing some of the research questions that are found at the bottom here. So some of the guiding questions that we see at the bottom are, were fertility treatments or fertility stimulation drugs used? If so, what type were used, or was this something that was naturally found? The second question is, what was the age of the mother at the time of the multiple births? So was that mother between those 32 to 36, or was it just a different factor that resulted in these multiple births? But the age is something that I would like you to include. Let us know if there were any complications that occurred to the mother and or babies. Let us know if the baby suffered any long-term disabilities or consequences as being part of that multiple birth. And then if you find anything else that is interesting or that you want to share about the family, please include that. Also, please remember to include what the septuplets, sextuplets, quintuplets, what that meaning is. So how many kids is that actual name? How many is multiple births in that name? All right, so there are there are 6 families listed, and there are 6 people in our A cohort. So, Ava, I'm going to have you covering the McCaughey. Jenna will be covering the Dilly. Paige will be covering the Fisher family. Cheyenne can be covering the Sulman. Griffin can cover the Matthias. And then Dayton, you can cover the Gosselin family. So if you just want to do some research on these individual families and tell us more about their multiple births, that would be great. I have created this Google Doc with you. Once you have completed your research, it can be super informal. You can create just a Google Doc answering those questions. You can just do a notability document. You could create a Google Slides presentation if you wanted, but you do not need to. Once you have completed that and you have your information found, I would like you just to link your information to whatever family you have. So you can just go ahead and insert that link so that everyone has access to it. So make sure in your sharing settings that you are changing it so that anyone can access. So I'm going to change to Pulaski Community Schools. Anyone within the Pulaski Community Schools can edit it. And then I will share this with you as well, so you should have it in your email. This will then link to the course calendar so that you guys can review the information. So this information should be covered in class today. So the last mod of class will be used to present this information. So the note taker shouldn't have taken that long, and your research shouldn't take that long. But then the last mod will be covering this information. So if you have a conflict and you are leaving early from class, that is fine. You can go ahead and you can leave. Just make sure that you are covering the information on your own then. And then if you are not, they are just going to be super informal presentations sharing the information that you found with your classmates today. And they can just follow along on their iPads and follow those individual links. I know this class was a little bit different today, but if you have questions, please let me know. And I am going to hop over and talk about some things on the course calendar quickly here. So we are here on the 21st of September. So we've covered environment and heredity. We've looked at our note taker. We've talked about that multiple births research. This last link here is a Unit 1 study list and review worksheet. With that study list and review worksheet, this is not an assignment. This is just for your benefit. And you'll see that our activities for the week, that is one of your activities, because the second activity is going to complete your Unit 1 quiz. So your Unit 1 quiz will have information regarding environment and heredity, as well as multiple births in it. And then for your second activity, I would like you to begin working on your birth defects project. So our birth defects project, we're going to be looking at some of those defects and vocabulary terms that we had talked about today. So you can just go ahead and get started working on that this week. That would be great. Next week in class, we'll be covering some pregnancy information. And then following that, we'll look at labor and delivery. If you guys have questions, please feel free to reach out. I will be available via email. Just please reach out if you have questions via email or Canvas. Let me know. I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for following along with this unconventional presentation today.